Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. In this week's video I'm going to answer another question that I get asked a lot, which is what are my favourite art supplies and why do I use them? Now, as many of you know, I am a watercolor illustrator. I create intricate illustrations of flora and fauna, kind of in almost a natural history, botanical art style. I also illustrate children's picture books, so there's a few different materials that I use to achieve the results I want. Now I have to admit to you that what I use these days is a hell of a lot less than what I used to use. Like many creatives, I used to have a lot of art supplies, like a lot. I used to like to experiment with all kinds of things, including printmaking. And then I moved into a small apartment, so I had to downsize. By doing that, I really had to try and think about what are the art materials that I want to keep using? What are the things that I really, really love and I want to continue, and just keep those only? And it was a little heartbreaking, I won't lie, but also it was actually one of the best things, because by kind of narrowing down what I have and what I was working with, instead of just choosing all these different things and experimenting, I was experimenting with the same thing. So I feel like, at least for me, I have become a little bit more of a master, if you like, mastering the craft, I mean, of the art materials I chose to keep, and that's been a really good thing. I have to admit, it's been a really good thing. Actually, there's this quote. It's attributed to Orson Welles, and it goes something like, "The enemy of art is the absence of limitations." And I guess for me that was so true, because when I narrowed the art materials right down and I put limitations around what I'm using, I found that I was able to kind of be more creative by pushing the boundaries of the things I was using, by experimenting with the things I was using. So yeah, it's been a really good thing for me. Anyway, let's get into what I actually use. Let's start with the star of the show, and that's the watercolor paints. So I use Winsor & Newton professional quality paints. These are the artist quality. I would say let's start with the con, is that they're very expensive, but for me, they're very reliable. They mix beautifully. The pigment is awesome. I can't really fault them in terms of just the quality of them. Now, I will say that these are designed to last, hundreds of years. So when it comes to painting, as I said, these are very expensive. They're just a little tube like this, very expensive. But if you are painting something that's going in an exhibition, that's going to get framed, that's going to go on somebody's wall, this is the thing to use. This is going to last. You're guaranteeing that whatever they're paying for the painting, it's worth it, because A, you're an awesome artist. I wish I always believed that about myself. But more importantly, perhaps, this is going to last for a long time. They're paying for quality. So that's the brand that I love to use. Now, as I've just said, that's the artist quality. They do also have Cotman paints, and this is, I guess this would be considered their student quality, but Winsor & Newton paints are so fantastic that the student quality is really just as good. It's just not guaranteed to last hundreds and hundreds of years. It'll still last probably hundreds of years. So if you are painting something like an illustration that you will then scan in, and then it's mostly going to be used digitally, or it only needs to be used for a period of time, and after that, the illustration itself, the original, is just going to sit somewhere, like somewhere in a drawer or in your portfolio or whatever, then I would recommend that you just use the Cotman paints, because they are just as good and much cheaper. So that's the paints. Now for me, when I'm doing children's illustration, when I'm doing the natural history style illustration, I use them straight out of the tube. I love to use them from the tube. Just squeeze a little bit. It's nice and liquid already. Mixing is just a breeze. Getting the pigment that you want is it's an absolute breeze. But when I am doing children's illustration or when I'm traveling, I have actually squeezed all of them out into this lovely little box here. So I put them all into these little palette things. What are they called? Oh my goodness. Anyway, and I use it like this. Why? Because when I'm doing children's book illustration, I want to keep using the same colors. I want to keep mixing the same colors throughout the 32 pages and, you know, however many more illustrations that ends up being 50 something illustrations. Because, you know, I want there to be some kind of color harmony throughout the whole book. I want it to look consistent. So I prefer to use the pans, that's what they're called. I prefer to use the pans when I'm doing children's books. Also, it's really easy to just get this out and use it, just to set it up and use it. So I can also just bring it out in an evening and sit in front of the TV and illustrate. So that's really important for me. So I'll use these when I'm doing children's books. Okay. One thing that I will say, in terms of paint, if you are just starting out and you're a beginner, please go and check out my video about testing $2 store cheap paints, because they were really good and you won't have to spend much money. And if you're just starting out and you don't know if this is for you and you don't know how to use them yet and you're worried you're going to make 100 mistakes, please check out that video. The paints are pretty good. Alright, so that's the paints. So let's move on to the next thing, and although it's probably not the star of the show, for me this is the most important art supply to get right, and that's the paper. So let me show you what I use. I always use Archer's watercolor. Now I'm probably saying that wrong. It's probably some fancy, well, it is some fancy French name, and so maybe Archer, or really have no idea. I'm not even gonna try. But yeah, I use Arches always, because for me it's 100% reliable. Getting that paper quality right, I think, is more important than the kind of paint that you're using. It is 100% cotton. I always use at least 300 GSM. Bump the camera there, sorry. Always at least 300 GSM. Because that means that when I'm adding a lot of water, the paper's not going to buckle. So that's really important for my practice. I have actually tested a lot of different paper, and for me this one it's just surpasses them all. I've not tested some recently, and I noticed actually when I went into the art shop recently that there was all kinds of new brands of paper that I'd not heard of, and so maybe I need to test them again. But for me, this baby here, this one is so reliable. When I'm doing children's book illustration, I actually use this medium or rough, because I just like, you probably cannot see this on camera at all, you're just seeing a white page, which is awesome. Yeah, I love the rough texture. If you have a flat children's book page, I want to add some texture to that. I want to bring it to life. And I find having the paper with its own texture, it really makes such a huge difference. But the other thing with medium or cold press or rough paper is also that it's very forgiving. So it can take a lot of water, but it can also, if you make a mistake, you can add water and much more easily soak up that mistake. Whereas when you are using smooth paper, so when I am doing the natural history style illustration, I use smooth paper. That's because I find with the smooth paper, because you're not battling against a rough texture or rough grain, you can get a lot more detail. So, which is what I'm wanting to achieve in that case. The other thing is when it comes to scanning it in, and for those I scan them at home. I have an A4 art printer, so I'm able to scan A4 illustrations. Art scanner, sorry. Yeah, I'm able to scan it very easily without having to try and battle a texture. So I can scan it in, I can remove the white background, and that's no problem. So they're the two papers I use. The other thing that I should say about using Arches Watercolor, which I have tested with other brands, as I said, and this is one particular place where they fail miserably, is that if I want to mask out anything, so for masking fluid, I use Winsor & Newton masking fluid, colorless in this case, because I don't want it to stain the paper at all. Not that the other ones should, but you know, I'm just taking precautions. When you use masking fluid, what tends to happen is with the other papers that I've tested, when I'm removing the masking fluid, it's torn the paper. The only one that has not happened with when I've tested many brands was Arches. So that is the paper that I use, that I swear by, that I love. When I'm doing children's books, I actually buy them in huge sheets and I cut them up, and then I have exactly the size that I need as well. So that's the paper. Next on the list are the brushes. So for me, it's gonna sound like I'm an absolute brand snob, but for me, I just love Winsor & Newton brushes. I would say in terms of price, they're probably middle of the range, but they're very reliable again. Yeah, I love them. I typically use the round brushes like this one here. Otherwise, I do have this one flat brush that I'll use when I'm doing kind of backgrounds and, you know, bigger areas of block color. That's normally what I'm using when I go to an art store. I reach out and I get the Winsor & Newton brush. I do have this one, and I got this free actually. I do have this one Arches brush. It's lovely. So I do use this one as well when I'm doing bigger areas of color. And maybe I'll look for some more of that down the track, but it's not needed to be replaced yet. And I have this one brush that I hope I never ever have to replace. This brush was given to me when I was 12 by my brother. We were living in the UK, and I think it was my 12th birthday, and he gave me this brush. So it is Frank Clark's Simply Painting. It is a Winsor & Newton brush. It says Winsor & Newton England there and has the code number. I think from memory it's goat's hair or something. I forget what it's actually made from. It's very, very nice and fluffy. This is so good for doing great big background washes because it holds a lot of water. So you can do these beautiful, beautiful washes. It makes it lovely and smooth. It blends it. I love this brush. I hope I never, ever have to replace this brush because I just love it. Pencils. When I'm doing children's book illustration, I like to use pencil. It adds texture. I use it for outlines, of course, but then I also use it over the top of the watercolor. So when I'm creating outlines, picking them up carefully, I use these. So these are polychromos. I did test a whole bunch of different types of pencils, and for me, I just really liked the look of the line, I guess the texture of the line that these give. And the brightness of the pigment, and it still maintains a nice sharp line as well. And by the way, I did buy myself an electric sharpener, and it is the most satisfying thing to use. So polychromos, they're Faber-Castell polychromos. Then for adding texture after I've done some painting, I'll use these. So these are Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer German pencil. It's a watercolor pencil, and the reason that I'm using them is simply that I have two sets of these. I'm almost ashamed to add. I have a set that I was given literally, I think maybe my 10th birthday, maybe 11th or something, by my grandma. It's a big double set like this. And then I think this set, I have a feeling I won this set in some kind of competition. So I have two sets of watercolor pencils, so I may as well use them. So I use these to add texture, as I said, over the top of the watercolor. I really love seeing texture in children's books, or just in general. It's something that it makes my heart sing. I will use them to add shadow, or to add even highlight with, like, you know, if the sun's hitting somewhere, I might use yellow. And the benefit of them being watercolor pencil is I can actually add water if I want to turn it into a paint as well. So it's really great, very versatile. So there, the pencils. This other thing that I have sitting here, if you're an artist, you might know, is a kneadable eraser. So I use this after I've done outlines in lead, and I would typically use a pacer for that. I will use this kneadable eraser just to lighten the outline before I start doing the final art. And that's it. I think we've gone through all the art supplies. I will say there is one other art supply that I have not touched on, and I think I'm going to save it for a future video. Last year before, just before traveling overseas, I got some pens. They're pens that they are not water resistant, so if you add water they will bleed, and I purposefully got these pens. I think I had seen a video or something on Instagram, or and I thought this is really going to challenge me to use these for travel illustration to kind of loosen up my style. Travel illustration you need to do fairly quickly. I work very slow, and a whole experiment, and I love them, and I've used them since when traveling. So I think I'll do a future vlog about those, and maybe we'll use them together, a bit of a challenge. But yeah, so that's it. I hope that you have found this video useful. If you're new, please do subscribe, and if you're wanting to see future videos, please give this a like. If you did find it useful, and let me know in the comments what your favorite art supplies are, because even though I have limited, I still love to learn new art supplies. And yeah, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for watching if you got this far, and hope you have a great week and happy painting. See you next time.